The fairy lights in the backyard were twinkling like tiny stars. They hung from the trees and fences, making the whole place look warm and magical. Everyone at the party looked happy. Friends were laughing, families were hugging, and people were taking pictures. It was my engagement party. My fiancé Kale and I had been together for almost 5 years. This was supposed to be the start of our forever, the beginning of our happy life together. I was floating on happiness, feeling like my heart could burst with joy. Every laugh, every hug, every glass of champagne that clinked in the air felt like the perfect note in a perfect song. I could hear Kale's voice giving a sweet speech, talking about how much he loved me, and I felt tears of happiness in my eyes. I went inside for a few minutes to fix my makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror and smiled. Everything was perfect. My heart felt full of love and excitement. I couldn't wait to go back outside and join Kale again, holding his hand and smiling at everyone together. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where you watching this from, and what time of day is it. But when I stepped outside, I couldn't see Kale or my sister Saris. I looked around the garden, feeling a little confused. I felt a tiny flicker of annoyance in my chest. Why weren't they there? I wanted to show everyone that Kale and I were a happy couple. I started looking around. Maybe they were in the kitchen or the living room. I checked. Nothing. Then a friend of mine pointed to the side of the house near the old oak tree. Dad had hung a swing there when we were kids. She said with a small smile, I think I saw them go that way. I walked slowly around the corner. The happy sounds of the party, people talking, glasses clinking, laughter, started fading behind me. I felt a little nervous. And then I saw them. There they were, standing together in the shadows. My little sister, Saris, had her arms wrapped around Kale's neck. And my Kale was kissing her. Not a little friendly peck, but a deep, passionate, desperate kiss. A kiss that seemed like it had been happening for a long time. A kiss that told a story I never knew existed. The world felt completely silent. I gasped. My chest hurts. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They hadn't noticed me yet. My legs shook so hard that I could barely stand. One hand flew to my mouth to stop myself from crying out. I turned and ran away. Not through the party because everyone was there staring and laughing. I ran down the street away from the house. My pearl earrings bounced up and down. My pretty engagement dress felt heavy, like it was a costume making me look foolish. I didn't stop running until I reached a hotel a few miles away. The lobby was cold and quiet, full of strangers. I paid for a room with my credit card. My hands shook so much I could barely sign my name. When I went inside the room, I collapsed onto the bed. My life felt like it had broken into a million tiny pieces. Then my phone started buzzing. A message from Kale. Another from Saris. Then another from Kale. I didn't know if I wanted to read them, but I had to know. Called my best friend Leora. Amaris, what's wrong? Where are you? She asked immediately. I couldn't speak. I just sobbed, a quiet, ragged sound that made me feel like my whole body was shaking. Hey, talk to me. Are you okay? Are you hurt? She asked again, her voice soft but firm. I saw them, I finally whispered, my voice barely a sound. I saw Kale and Saris. I couldn't even say the word. My throat felt raw. There was a sharp, quick intake of breath on the other end of the line. Then she said, read me the messages. You need to know everything. Read them out loud. I'm right here with you. I opened Kale's first. My voice was low and monotone as I read. Amaris, I'm so sorry you had to see this. It's been going on for a while. I only proposed to you because I wanted to forget my feelings for Saris. But I can't. You were a temporary distraction. A temporary distraction. 5 years of my life, our shared dreams, the plans we had for our future together. Just a distraction to him. My stomach turned over. I felt sick, dizzy, and my head spun with confusion. Leora was shouting at him on the phone. I could hear every curse word she knew, all aimed at Kale. Then I opened Saris's message. I know you're upset, but you have to understand. Kale and I are meant to be together. It's fate. We couldn't fight it anymore. Fate. She called her betrayal of her own sister fate. No sorry. No guilt. Just a selfish reason that made her feel justified. Suddenly, a memory came rushing back, sharp and painful. I was 16, getting ready for my junior prom. Grandma had given me her beautiful silver locket to wear. It was delicate and precious, my most treasured possession. Saris, who was 14, begged to borrow it for her school dance the week before my prom. I said no. She threw a tantrum and my parents stepped in. "Don't be selfish," my mother said. "You're the older sister. Let her wear it. She'll be careful." My father just grunted in agreement. Of course she lost it. And when I cried, they comforted her, not me. My heartbreak didn't matter. Her feelings were the most important. And now, she wanted my fiancé. I stayed in that hotel for 3 days, just lying in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling numb. Leora brought me clothes and food. She sat with me in silence when I couldn't talk, and she listened when I finally could. I ignored all the calls from my parents. Finally, I knew I had to leave. I had to pack my things and go. I drove home, my heart heavy and my hands shaking. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw my parents' car. A cold, sick feeling settled in my stomach. I walked inside and froze. My mother, my father, Saris, and Kale were sitting in the living room, drinking coffee, laughing quietly. Looked normal, peaceful, like a happy family. But I wasn't part of it. My mother was the first to notice me. Her face had a soft, worried look. "Oh, Amaris, honey, we were so worried," she said. "Worried?" They were here with them. Saris and Kale held hands and shared a soft kiss. My mother even had a happy tear on her cheek. "Isn't it wonderful they found each other?" she said. I couldn't believe it. Wonderful. He was my fiancé 30 minutes ago. And now they were sitting there smiling about it. My blood boiled. My father stood up. "Amaris, that's enough. Stop acting like a child. What's done is done. Your sister is happy. You should be happy for her." Happy for her? My voice shook with anger. "She ruined my life. He ruined my life. And you're sitting here celebrating." Saris spoke in that familiar way she always did when she wasn't getting her way. "You're just trying to ruin this for me because you're jealous." Something inside me finally snapped. The years of being pushed aside, of being told my feelings didn't matter, of always being told to be the bigger person, all of it came together into one clear thought. They would never see me. They would never choose me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I went upstairs. I opened my largest suitcase and began to pack. Clothes, books, toiletries. I packed the photos of my friends and left the family albums on the shelf. I could hear their voices downstairs, muffled, probably talking about how dramatic I was being. They didn't come to stop me. I finished packing. The suitcase was heavy, but I dragged it down the stairs. I felt a strange mix of sadness, anger, and relief. I was leaving behind the people who should have loved me the most but didn't. I was leaving behind a life that wasn't mine anymore. I stood in the doorway of my house looking back one last time. The lights of the engagement party glowed behind the windows. Laughter and music floated out into the night. But I wasn't part of it. I turned, took a deep breath, and walked out the door. Outside, the air was cool and refreshing. For the first time in days, I felt a tiny bit of freedom. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I got into my car, carrying my suitcase in the back seat, and drove into the night. The city lights blurred past me, and for the first time, I didn't feel trapped in someone else's story. I was going to start a new one. Just for me. They all looked at me as I walked to the front door. My heart was beating fast, but my face stayed calm. My dad stepped forward and asked, "Where do you think you're going?" I stopped with my hand on the door handle and looked back at the 4 people who were supposed to be my family. My mom, my dad, Saris, and Kale. They all stared at me with shock and anger. I had never seen their faces look so serious. "I hope you all are happy together," I said slowly, my voice very calm. "Goodbye." I opened the door, walked out, and closed it behind me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. That night, I blocked all their phone numbers. Every single one. I didn't want to hear from them again. A few weeks later, a thick, cream-colored wedding invitation came to Leora's apartment, where I was staying. I didn't even want to look at it. I threw it straight in the trash. I couldn't believe it. They wanted me to go to their wedding after everything that had happened. I felt my stomach twist with anger and disbelief. Many of our friends and even some of my relatives had heard the full story. They were shocked and upset with my parents. Most of them chose to take my side. They stopped talking to my family too. It was strange, but I didn't care. For years, my parents had worked hard to look like a perfect family to everyone else. But now that perfect image was starting to fall apart. I didn't know exactly how much it was crumbling. And to be honest, I didn't care. I was busy making a new life for myself, starting over from the broken pieces of the old one. The first year on my own was very hard. Some mornings I woke up in my tiny studio apartment and felt so lonely that it felt like a heavy stone sitting on my chest. I missed the idea of my family, the one I thought I had. I missed Sunday dinners, even the messy arguments and small fights. I missed the holiday traditions even if they weren't perfect. But I didn't let myself dwell on it too long. I used that sadness and anger as fuel for something better. I had a job as a junior marketing associate at a small company. I decided I wasn't just going to do okay, I was going to be the best. I stayed late after work. I took on the projects that nobody else wanted. I learned as much as I could. Slowly I grew. Slowly I started to climb the ladder at my job. I wanted a life I could control, a life that was mine. After 2 years of hard work, I got a big promotion. The new salary meant I could move out of my tiny studio apartment and into a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in a modern building downtown. The building was safe and quiet. It had big windows and a nice view of the city. This apartment became my sanctuary. For the first time in years, I felt truly safe. I started making new friends and discovering new hobbies. I went to art classes and cooking classes. I joined a small running group and started exploring the city. I was building a life that was entirely mine, free from my family's control and from Sarah's constant demands. 5 years passed. 5 years of silence. 5 years of peace. I am 34 years old now. I had become a senior marketing director at a bigger company. I was confident and happy. The hurt from the betrayal had changed from a deep raw wound into a thin silver scar. It was a small reminder of a battle I had fought and won. I rarely think about them anymore. They were like ghosts from another life. Then one Tuesday evening my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer it. I wanted to keep my life peaceful. But something made me pick it up. "Hello, Amaris," a voice said. It was soft and weak. It took me a moment to recognize it. It was my mother. My blood ran cold. 5 years of silence and now this. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. "Oh, Amaris, thank God. I need your help." "It's Saris." Of course it was. It was always about Saris. "I have to go," I said, ready to hang up. "No, please," my mom pleaded. Her voice was shaky and desperate. "Please just listen. They're in serious trouble." She started talking quickly, almost like she was scared I would hang up. She explained that after their wedding, Kale and Saris had used all the money from their wedding gifts to start a small consulting business. The business failed badly. They borrowed more money, maxed out their credit cards, and even borrowed from dangerous people who were now threatening them. They owed $90,000. And they were in serious danger. Everyone had tried to help. My parents had even spent the college fund they had saved for my future kids. "Could you help?" my mom begged. "We just need to get these people off their backs." I stood in my living room looking out at the city lights. My heart was pounding. I almost laughed. I couldn't believe their nerves. After 5 years, the first time they reached out, it was to ask me, the daughter they had thrown away, to save the sister who had caused so much trouble. "No," I said quietly but firmly. My voice was like steel. "What?" my mom whispered. He sounded shocked. "No," I repeated louder this time. "Saris and Kale made their choices long ago. They must live with the consequences." "But they're family," my mom cried. "How can you be so cruel?" "This is not revenge," I said calmly. "This is about boundaries. I will not hurt myself to help them. They lost the right to ask me for anything 5 years ago. Goodbye." I hung up and blocked her number. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. They were shaking from the adrenaline of finally closing that door for good. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. 30 minutes later, my apartment buzzer rang. I looked at the intercom video and froze. It was them. Saris and Kale were standing in the lobby of my building. They looked terrible. Kale was thin and his eyes were wide and nervous. Saris looked exhausted. Her designer clothes were wrinkled and her face was pale. She kept pressing the buzzer over and over. I didn't answer. I watched as she started yelling my name at the front desk. The Fenric told her she couldn't go up without permission. But then Kale pulled a thin piece of metal from his pocket. He started trying to pick the main door lock. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. This was a crime. I grabbed my phone to call 911. Then there was loud banging on my apartment door. They must have gotten past the front desk and taken the elevator up. "Amaris, I know you're in there," Saris shouted. "Open this door. You owe us." We are your family. The door handle started jiggling violently. My heart pounded. My hands shook as I held the phone. I opened the door just a little bit, keeping my phone up to record. Get away from my apartment, I said, my voice shaking. As soon as they saw the small opening, they shoved. The door flew open and I fell backward. Cale slapped the phone out of my hand. No phones, he shouted. Sarah pushed me hard. You did this, she screamed. If you had given us the money, none of this would have happened. You have to help us. You owe me. She shoved a crumpled piece of paper in my face. It was a promissory note. She wanted me to promise to pay all their debts. My brain raced. I had to act fast. I saw my keys on the small table by the door. On my keychain was a small gray button, the panic button for my building security. I had never thought I'd need it. I lunged for it. Cale saw me move and grabbed my arm, but he was too slow. I pressed the button for 3 seconds. A silent alarm sent a message to the security office downstairs. I stepped back. A strange calm washed over me. They hadn't noticed. They were still too focused on their own problems. It's over, I said. Cale laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. It's not over until you give us the money. Oh, I'm not talking about money, I said, smiling slowly. I pointed to the small camera on the ceiling outside my door. I'm talking about this. Smile. The panic button worked quickly. Within minutes, security guards arrived at my apartment. They were big, strong, and serious. They immediately ordered Sarah and Cale to leave. I stayed behind my door, breathing hard but feeling a strange sense of relief. I was safe. I realized then how much I had grown in the last 5 years. I was no longer a scared, lonely girl. I was strong. I had built a life that was mine. And no one could take it from me. Sarah and Cale were arrested for trying to break in. My parents never reached out again. And I finally felt free. My life, my apartment, my friends, my work. Everything was mine. I had fought, I had won, and I had survived. I sat down in my beautiful living room looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt completely calm. The past was behind me. The future was mine to build. And I would never let anyone destroy it again. The whole building was being watched by cameras all the time. Every hallway, every corner, every floor had cameras. The color went right out of Sarah and Cale's faces when they realized this. They looked at the camera and then at me, and suddenly, it seemed like they understood everything. At that exact moment, a very loud alarm started ringing through the hallway. It was so loud it made my ears hurt. The building was responding to the panic button I had pressed. It was meant to make sure help came immediately, and it worked perfectly. Through all that noise, I heard another sound that made me feel a little relieved. The sound of police sirens getting louder and louder. The police were coming, and they were coming fast. In less than 2 minutes, the elevator doors opened and 2 officers in full uniform stepped out. Their faces were serious and determined. They didn't smile. They didn't hesitate. The Fenric was with them, pointing at my apartment with a shaking finger. They didn't even need an explanation. They could see everything from the way I was standing and how the apartment looked. I was messy and pressed against the wall, my hair probably sticking out in all directions. My phone was lying on the floor, knocked over during the struggle. Sarah and Cale were frozen like animals caught in headlights. Sarah started crying immediately, big tears running down her face. "Officer, thank God," she said in a shaky voice. "My sister, she's crazy. She's trying to have us kicked out." The officer ignored her completely and looked straight at me. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked kindly. I nodded, feeling nervous, but I managed to find my voice. They went into my apartment without waiting, moving quickly and efficiently. "They assaulted me," Cale shouted, trying to sound brave. "That's a lie. This is just a family matter. It's about an inheritance dispute, a misunderstanding." The lead officer wasn't buying it. "Sir," he said firmly, "your family matter involved you trying to bypass building security and shoving one of my staff members." The Fenric spoke up. "We have it all on video. Every second of what happened." That was the final nail in the coffin for them. They had no more excuses. The fight in them drained away like water out of a bucket. The officers cuffed them and read them their rights. Sarah kept looking at me with wide, pleading eyes. "Amaris, please tell them to stop. You can't do this to me. I'm your sister." I looked at her. The woman who had taken my fiancé, the woman who had enjoyed my pain, the woman who had tried to make me the guilty one for everything she had done wrong. And I felt nothing. There was only a quiet emptiness where my love for her used to be. I watched them being led into the elevator, and for the first time in 5 years I felt truly, completely free. A week later my doorbell rang. This time I saw my parents on the video screen. They looked older than I remembered, and they looked tired and defeated. I let them in. They stood awkwardly in my entryway, glancing around at the life I had built without them. I could see the pride and fear in their eyes at the same time. My father, a man I had never seen cry in my life, had tears in his eyes. "We were wrong, Amaris," he said, his voice thick and trembling. "We were so wrong." After the arrest, the phone had been ringing constantly. My mother spoke in a monotone voice. "Your Aunt Vesper and some of our old friends heard what happened. They were ashamed of us. They said we had failed you. And they were right. They finally saw what everyone else had seen all along. We are so sorry," they said. But I knew the truth. They weren't sorry for me. They were sorry because everyone else now knew what they had done, and they didn't like looking bad. I took a deep breath. The old Amaris would have cried and accepted their apology because she had been so hungry for their approval for so long. But the old Amaris was gone. I said softly but firmly, "I hear you. I understand. But you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry for how it makes you look." They opened their mouths to argue, but I held up a hand. "It's okay. I accept your apology, not for you but for me. So I can finally let it go." I looked them both in the eyes. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean we can go back. That door is closed. The person you knew is gone. I walked them to the door. They didn't argue. There was nothing left to say. I shut the door gently behind them. The apartment was quiet. For a moment I just stood there taking it all in. 6 months later I was hosting a small dinner party in my apartment. My guests were Leora and a few other close friends. My real family, the people I chose to be in my life. We were laughing at something silly, our voices echoing in the warm, happy space I had made for myself. Leora raised her glass. "To Amaris," she said, her eyes shining. "The one who built her own castle, moat and everything else, all by herself." Later that night, after everyone had left, I went out to my balcony and looked at the city lights. They sparkled like tiny stars below me. I thought about my family. I had heard through the grapevine that Saris and Kale had avoided jail time, but it wasn't a happy ending for them. They had to see a court-appointed lawyer declare bankruptcy, sell everything and move in with my parents. Their perfect life had completely fallen apart. I didn't feel happy about their misfortune. I just felt calm and quiet. I thought about the family I had lost. For a moment I felt a familiar pang of sadness. But it was only a small feeling, like a cloud passing in front of the moon. Then it was replaced by a deep, unshakable sense of peace. My worth didn't depend on their approval. My happiness didn't depend on their love. I had found it all on my own. I went back inside and turned the deadbolt on my door. The solid final click didn't sound scary anymore. It was the sound of safety. The sound of sanctuary. The sound of a life that was finally and completely mine. A life I had built for myself, where I was free, happy and in control. For the first time in years I felt like I could breathe. The past no longer controlled me. The mistakes and cruelty of others couldn't hurt me anymore. I had my own family, my friends, my home and my heart. And that was enough.